Hi, Dom.
Hey, Mike, what's up?
Not too much. We are here doing our first documentary, right? We
This is our very first documentary, and you could not have picked a more timely documentary than
yeah
this
yeah
one.
yeah. We're right in the middle of this whole Celtic playoff, and
Yeah, I don't know how things are going to be when this video goes to air, but for those of you listening at home, um, I believe game six between the Celtics and the Knicks happens tonight. And if
yes,
the
yep,
Celtics lose, they're going to be knocked out. So this is a huge game for them.
yeah, it's crucial game. So yeah, and I think um, now you're on the opposite side of the country. I'm in New Hampshire. You're on the opposite side of the country, way up there in that Pacific Northwest.
Yep,
So
yep. I,
I
I
have,
unfortunately, due to my geographic location,
yes,
a Trailblazers fan. And don't get
yes.
me wrong, the Portland Trailblazers love them as a team, but they haven't been winning a lot.
Mm. Well, it's hey, goes in cycles, and it's basketball is a hard luck sport sometimes. You can definitely go from the heights to the lows, and
There's
um,
a bar over here in Portland called the Spirit of 77. Do you know what that represents?
well, yeah, the 77 was that
It's
70.
the only year the Trailblazers have ever won the
Yeah,
championship.
yeah. So that means something. That means something to you guys out in Portland. Now I mean, I was an Army brat as a kid, but I mean, I grew up largely in the New Hampshire area, and I spent a lot of my time between Maine and New Hampshire. When I was after my dad retired, um, and just my geographic area has been Northeast. So you can't be in the Northeast without being aware of the New England teams, being the Boston teams, and I certainly I really started to become a fan of the Celtics probably during the Dave Cowens years, and he was such a great player, and but I was aware of basketball from a pretty early age, and I really started really enjoying and loving the Celtics. And when Bird came along, that cemented it. He was an eye opener. How well he played basketball. And to this day, there's arguments about Bird, and there was there was a surprising amount of almost a little bit of it was like there's no way like a white guy can play this good when he came into the league, and darned if he wasn't proving a lot of people wrong. There was a famous there was a famous line, and I don't even can't remember who the player was now, but he was listening on the radio, and he said he this was when Bird was still in college playing for Indiana, and he said he's hearing, Bird makes the shot, Bird does this, Bird, what a beautiful pass by Bird, and he said, man, this brother has got to be really something. And he said, then I see the guy and I think to myself, there's no way that guy can't be that player. But anyway, the Bird and Magic, and I want to get your reflections on this next, but Bird and Magic right away, the rivalry, uh, it was East Coast, West Coast. Bird getting drafted by the Celtics, Magic getting drafted by the Los Angeles, the glitzy ones, and the Celtics were considered like working man player, but that's their fans were all kind of considered just working, which it
That's
wasn't really
Boston.
true. What's that?
It's Boston. You don't get more blue collar than Boston.
That's true. That's true. But that's definitely true. But and Boston, for better or worse, the fans are crazy in Boston. They're crazy in Los Angeles too. But I mean, what a great rivalry between the and what really is amazing is how they ended up. going from fierce rivals to actually becoming good friends. So anyway, how old were you when you really like started to take notice of when you were like really getting into the
Oh, it
sport
had to
and
be
the um,
it had to be like around 1980
yeah,
because I can remember being interested a few years before Jordan got in
yeah,
the game.
yeah,
He got in '84.
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, my memory was you following, and your brother Mike, uh, he was such a Laker fan, and he hated. To tell you the truth, he was joking with me the other day, and he said I really think about it was more about like the Celtics and the fact um, that it was almost like anybody more. And then he kind of later did become a fan of the Celtics, but back then he just wasn't.
If
But
you're in New England
yeah,
and you're at all into basketball, it's hard not to be a fan of the Boston Celtics. They are one of the greatest teams that has ever been
their
in the
dynasty is
franchise. I believe they currently hold the record for most championship
yeah,
wins.
yeah, they still do. They still have them. They still have the most banners up there in those rafters. And it was funny too because coming into which they were still playing in the Boston Garden back then, but coming into the Boston Garden, it was such an antiquated building. I mean, there were a lot of the seats had obstructed views. If you got a seat, you might very well have a big iron girder right in front of you, and you have to spend the whole game trying to move your head around that girder to see. And that's how. And it was always packed, of course, but certainly packed when the Lakers came to town. But yeah, so I just remember all the fun times watching as a family together. I mean, your grandfather really got into them, and Mike would always, your brother Mike would always watch, even when he was like really just rooting for for the for the Lakers or any team to beat the Celtics. But yeah, they're just getting into the background of these two guys. The documentary is a terrific documentary. I don't. What did you think of the documentary, first of all?
I thought it was good. I gotta say, my love of sports comes from seeing it being played. And
Right.
so a documentary is much less interesting to me. Um, but certainly this was such an event in history. Like there was no other time in the NBA that was quite like this.
No.
And I feel privileged to have lived through it.
Yep.
And I wonder, after watching the documentary, as good as it is, how meaningful it would be to anyone who wasn't alive to witness the actual rivalry.
It's surprising, Don, because just watching, I've been watching because we watched this and I started watching a lot of YouTube videos on Bird and Magic, and also players commenting on Bird, young players, young people that were fans of the newer generation of basketball players. Because there's been comments thrown around by different people. Dennis Rodman, not too long ago, and he's a nut sometimes anyway. His opinions can be all over the place, but he he's famous for knocking Bird's abilities, and but even back then, the Celtics beat um, the Celtics beat um, the bad boys and knocked them out. And Isaiah and Dennis Rodman, both of them made comments. It started with Rodman, and he said Bird ain't that great of a player. If he was black, he'd just be just another player. And that everybody was like, "Whoa!" That's the comment had elements of race and all kinds of stuff mixed up in it, which was, but and then Isaiah Thomas is standing right there next to him, and so of course they put the mic on Isaiah, and Isaiah's like, yeah, I agree with them. He'd just be another player. So they got nailed everywhere in the press. People were really coming after him to the point where they ended up calling a press conference, and they got Bird, Isaiah. I don't know if Rodman was at it, but they wanted them to apologize for making the remarks. And yeah, I know they asked
And
Bird,
people trash talk all the time. How is
of
that any
course,
different?
of course, and Bird came out and said, "Look," he goes, "if I don't care about this, and if I don't care about this, and it was said about me," he goes, "why should all of you people be making a big thing out of this?" He goes, "That was locker room talk, man." He goes, When you lose a game, you say all kinds of stuff in that locker room." And he said, "I'm not holding this against any of these guys." He goes, it's no big deal." He goes, I know what I can do on that court." And he walked away from it. And I saw an interview just recently. Isaiah Thomas came out and said, "I just want to thank you," because he said, "You could have crucified us at that." He said, "They were really coming after us," and he said, the fact that you said leave it alone, it's no big deal." He goes, "They just had to drop it." And he said, "I just want to thank you." And Bird goes, "Hey, I've been there, man." He goes, I've been in that locker room when," he goes, "there's nothing worse than a loss." And he said, "You're sitting in there in that locker room." He said, "Yeah, I've been sitting there where I was just crying over how bad the loss was and thinking, it's you hate those, you hate whoever beat you at that moment. So, but yeah, I love this documentary just because um, these two, and yeah, I think if you're not from the era, you're left with looking at highlight footage of their play. But these two guys were great, and I when I say great, I mean they were great in a way that was just unbelievable. They both
Mhm.
they both managed to make their teams win. They willed their teams to win, and both of them are really terrific people. That's the other cool thing about them is they're really they're pretty decent guys that like I said, I think they're all about not only the game and winning, but also sportsmanship and just not to say they were rough. They were rough out there. This was a different NBA than it is today. You can't play with that same kind of roughness. But they played hurt. They played at times when they probably shouldn't have been on the court. Yeah, they were in such
No, and
bad.
I think if we talk to Larry Bird, if we get to hear his innermost thoughts,
Yeah.
looking back and how he's probably feeling right now, he probably wishes he hadn't played as hard.
Well, yeah, it's hard to know. I know we love the game so much, but yeah, I know for a fact. I was just reading about this. His body is not in good shape.
Oh, it is not in good shape at all.
He's actually got an enlarged heart, so I don't know whether there's some drinking involved that maybe causes that,
Well, he
but
was supposed to have drank Charles Barkley under the table.
really, and that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. I love Charles Barkley. I want to go on record as saying that right now. That man is so damn funny. He's not always appropriate with what he comes out with, but he is funny. The man is hysterically funny, and but but yeah, getting into the what really how this documentary came about and their career. You had two guys that both came up kind of similar backgrounds in a lot of
Very
ways.
similar.
I mean, when you talk about like white and black and stuff like that, a lot of people they come from households that are when they really see what their households are like, is we're all alike, man. And these two were working class parents that worked real hard.
I mean, the
They
first team they were on the same team.
Oh, the USA team. Yes.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. Weren't they both on Michigan State?
No. Michigan was that was Magic's and
Because I
Urban
seem to
Magic
recall a
Johnson.
line from the documentary that
Yeah.
said their first team and their last team, they were both teammates.
Well, when they were first coming up, they did get and it was the first time they actually saw each other. Um, they were playing for it was a Team USA deal. Um, this is I could be wrong, but this is my memory of what they said, and they saw each other on that. It was in many ways it was almost like a um, basketball camp. I mean, they were playing playing teams against each other with each other, and they were both kind of scoping out each other's skills. But this is the one behind me right there. That's their college years, and with Magic being in Michigan, Bird being in Indiana, and he Bird actually he turned down. He could have gone to a bigger college. He went there. He realized it was going to cost too much money, and he quit and he left and he went home. And his mother was furious. She was like, "Why? Why would you do that?" And he said, "It's cost too much money. We can't afford that." So he ended up going to the cheaper school, which was Indiana State. That he largely because of his talents, Bird and Magic ended up meeting in the college playoffs, and Bird's team lost to Magic's, and he said that was probably the hardest loss I ever took was losing that game. But man, they started they both getting drafted to opposite ends of the country. It just set this whole thing, and of course everybody played up on the white guy, black guy
Well,
thing.
and that's the thing. Like if one of the things the documentary kind of does is
Yeah,
weaken the idea. It
yeah,
dilutes the idea that there was actually a rivalry there. It made it sound like the rivalry was more manufactured than anything.
yeah. But
Because even Bird said Bird's just a competitor. He's going to he's going to compete his best no matter who he's playing.
he is. However, the thing with Magic that was different, I think, was because early on, and because he suffered a loss to Magic's team, and plus the very fact that they were always throwing comparisons out about the two guys.
And that's the thing.
Yeah,
They
I
were
know,
always.
but that all they has that's a psychological thing in players' heads, and the fact he lost to them and to Magic was that was like a huge blow. And he said, I wanted to beat that guy so bad. I mean, he really he did have a he did have a strong because he said, recently when they were talking, he goes, this guy, because they were talking about their friendship, and he said, yeah, yeah, well, they did hate Jordan. That was you could really put it down to
Why would
that.
they hate Jordan?
They don't really hate him. Jordan, they both play golf with him. Bird plays golf with Jordan a lot. They're good buddies. This is on court. They hate each other on court. And that's where you have to really see the differences is where they hate each other is on the court. Like
Mhm.
Bird was saying not too long ago, he said, he said, I don't care what it is. He said, if I sat down and played checkers with this guy, he goes, I would want to kill him because that's what it's all about. And when they won their first championship off the Lakers, he said, when we beat him and we walked up, he said, I thought to myself, I hope he's hurting. I hope he's really hurting right now.
Hmm.
And he was saying that completely in the idea of um, that he knew how he was feeling when they yeah, there they are, young, very young. That was probably when they were playing with that whatever that team was. It was an American basketball league that was representing the country. But as far as I remember, anyway, from the documentary. But and then of course they did end up at the end of their career, they did end up playing for Team USA. Now, when they played for that, Bird was so battered, and of course Jordan was HIV positive by then,
John
and
Johnson was.
Magic Johnson, yeah, Magic Johnson, yeah. Um, so they re- the there was an effort really to keep both Bird and Magic off that team, and especially Bird because they were saying his back's so messed up he can't play. And Magic said, uh, if there's, oh, not Magic, Jordan said if there's anybody that deserves to be on this team, he goes, it's Larry Bird. And he goes, he pretty much said he wouldn't play if Bird and Magic weren't there. So but they finally got a chance to end their career together, and that was a pretty amazing thing right there. But yeah,
So,
so
so
like, go ahead.
let me do my job and be the critical one.
Okay,
So
sure.
problems I had with the documentary. One huge one is they kept making the supposition that the rivalry between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson essentially saved the NBA.
It did.
But they do not make that case. They don't show numbers, they don't
Well,
show
they
fine.
don't
I
need,
don't know what they mean. Like,
yeah,
did viewership go up? Did game
yeah,
attendance go up? I
yeah,
don't know because
yeah.
the documentary doesn't delve into this thing. It
The
makes this offhand comment, and it's a major supposition.
right. Well,
But I want to see, like, well,
yeah,
explain more about that.
it's well, I mean, I don't think they, I think they, when they made the statement in the documentary, I think they were taking it for granted that fans of the time would remember how bad things had gotten. There was if you actually go into the stats of what was going on, they were having trouble. The NBA was dying. They were having trouble filling the stadiums. They
But you see, I
selling
was
tickets.
I was what, like 10, 11 years old? I
Yeah,
didn't know that. I
yeah.
don't
Well,
remember it now.
there was a real feeling that the players were there was a lot of drugs in the NBA. That there was that a lot of the players were they just they didn't have the same drive to play and to win. And then you get these two guys who are both like killers on the court, both of them really wanting to win and driving their teams to do it. And the other thing, and this is something, it's funny because I watched, there's a very good David Letterman. If you can find that and add a link to it, or I'll do it if you want. The David Letterman interview where the two of them are on together and talking. The the biggest point that was made during that interview, and it went right over David Letterman's head, right over. Um, he was talking about basketball and what they brought to the game, and Magic came out with. He goes, I think what we really brought to the NBA and that really needed at the time was the elevation of our passing game. And he goes, we were both passers, and they were. It was those crazy behind the back passes, no look passes. I mean, they were just amazing players, and they made their teammates so much better.
So, so I still stand by the documentarians should have delved into that because if someone watches this documentary 30 years from now,
Right.
they're not going to know what the state of the NBA was. That
Well, it's
that should
yeah,
have been in the documentary.
it's almost like when you're watching a documentary on the Civil War and you say, well, it was fought over this or that. You're gonna have to take it for granted what the narrator is saying, and they can present some things by pictures and maybe even footage, but most of it is just someone repeating history. And if you have to decide whether that's true in history, then you're going to have to look to the history books or the, whatever the records are. But they just
So,
present that. So my feeling is I knew what the NBA was like, and I was like, yeah, they did. They made the game so much better um, with what they brought to it, and they both had teams that had amazing players to back them up. And the Celtics put together the Celtics starting front line there being Danny Ainge, an incredible 3-point shooter, terrific
and
guard.
this is my second criticism.
Dennis Johnson, the point guard. Oh my God, that man was so damn talented. He made such a contribution to that
But
team.
that's the thing. Kevin McHale,
Parrish,
Robert Parrish.
yeah, Robert
This
Parrish.
documentary ignores the team almost completely. And yes, Bird was the star. The documentary
Well,
is
the
about
whole documentary, yeah.
specifically about this rivalry, but Bird wouldn't have gotten where he is without that team behind him.
Well, of course, and neither would Magic Johnson.
Exactly. And so I
But
would have loved to have heard, yes, I agree that
but it
Magic
was a
that
it was a love story about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and how they made those teams possible. If you had taken either of those players out of the equation, that both of them would have gone into the cellar immediately.
and
Uh,
no argument. No,
they
I'm
they
I'm
were
not I'm not even making a
so,
comment about either team. I'm not making a comment about Bird or Magic, the Boston Celtics, the LA Lakers. I'm not making any comment about that. I'm commenting on the documentary, and I felt it was a weakness that they did not include
but
more
but it
about the
wasn't
teams they
the name of the documentary, Dom, was not um, Los Angeles versus the Celtics. The the Bird Magic years. That's not the name. The Bird or the name of the documentary was Magic and Bird: A Courtship of Rivals,
This is
and
true.
that's exactly what it was about. And it got right into their backgrounds, how they came up in working class families, very similar families with both of them driven uh, every day on that basketball court and working on the fundamentals of their game and how dedicated they were. I mean, Bird said at one time, he goes, because once they really became aware of each other, they worried about what the other one was doing and how the other one was progressing. And Bird said, if I went out and I shot 500 free throws, I think to myself, I bet that son of a bitch shot 600, and he'd go back out and shoot 100 more because he worried what was Magic doing and how was Magic training, and Magic Run did the same thing. It was crazy, and every little thing and this is where the rivalry does come in because every little thing, Bird won the MVP and the rookie MVP, that killed Magic. He wanted that, and the Lakers took the first championship. That killed Larry Bird. He was like,
Mhm.
damn, and so he's like, now he's got a ring. I got to get a ring, and so they were such competitors against each other. It was unbelievable, and so yeah, I fully see that you really where they're actually the first time that they really became probably more aware um, of actually kind of liking each other was really when they did the commercial together. That's what brought that Converse commercial, and it was after Larry Bird had won the Rookie of the Year and MVP, and
Yeah, I got to admit that commercial was genius. Whoever
it
made that
was
happen, genius.
it was genius, and it probably was one of the first ones besides Michael Jordan's later, those big sneaker.
Hmm.
Every NBA player nowadays that gets one of those contracts, they can thank Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and
Michael Jordan.
yeah, Michael Jordan. It's those players that brought the big sneaker commercials to with such big dollars because they had to pay him after that. but but yeah, so as far as the commercial, um, that Converse comes to Bird and Magic and says, "Hey, we want to do a commercial with both of you in it," and they're like, "Really?" And so Bird was like, "Well, we're doing it in French Lick," and and since it was kind of revolving around his rookie of the year, he got to pick the spot. And when they told Magic, Magic almost didn't do it. And when he did do it, he was like, "Wow, I don't know about this. I'm coming into this guy's home turf." So they got there, and Magic said it was. He said we do we do the first part of the commercial, and he says he said it was that we broke for lunch, and he says I'm heading to my trailer, and he goes he goes when I'm heading to my trailer, he goes, Bird comes up and goes, we're going up to my house. My mom fixed us all lunch, and she wants us to all get together and have lunch. And Magic was like, "Oh no, I don't know if I want to do this." And he really didn't know what French Lick was like, and it was over lunch, and he said he walked in the house. He goes, Bird's mom hugged me. He goes, and she hugged me. He goes, just like my mom hugs me. And he says, and she said to me, "You're my favorite player." And when he said that, like he looked over at Bird with a real sly smile on his face, and and Bird was just like, but no, his mom was really welcoming and gracious. His whole family was, and he said we started laughing and joking, and he said we started realizing, wow, we have a lot in common, and but they still had this thing because like Bird had a different approach, and he said, he goes the thing about this guy, he goes he's always smiling, and he looks so friendly, and he says I thought to myself he's just trying to draw me in and get me off guard, and so he said I couldn't like when we got on the court, he goes I couldn't like just be his buddy, and and he said it wasn't like I wanted to like hang out with them because we were rivals, and but they kind of kept that going, but their friendship has evolved over the years, and I think that's what this documentary what makes to me what makes this documentary so great is the evolving friendship that happened over the years and how close these guys have become. And I mean, that was another big statement that Bird made during the documentary. He said, "Till the day we die, we're going to be we're going to be associated together, and we're going to be close because of what happened." And it's crazy, but the stars align. These two guys are, they're etched in stone together. They're
I wish there had been more game footage as well. Like there were some clips, but like I don't think there was a single clip of court time that was longer than 5 seconds.
I mean,
And it's the ballet between these two. Like you can talk the topic to death,
yeah,
but until you've seen, like, just give me a good, solid, give 1 minute of these two on the court going back and forth with
yeah.
each other, and
Well,
that says more than 1,000 words.
the problem is with you could there I mean there really is so much footage that you could show,
Yep.
but I mean it's they really were faced with the task of telling their life story, and that is a I mean there's 2 hours of there's 2 hours of documentary right there. And another big aspect of this that happened during it because um, Magic being out in LA, he he was probably living the more glamorous life. I mean, admittedly, he said
Mhm.
it in the documentary was partying more. He got caught up in that, definitely for sure, and that was a
I mean, he
crazy
was
time.
this is the first time, one of the earliest times that you got had like rock star level athletes.
Yes, Yeah,
Like prior to the 80s, I don't know if there was enough money even in the professional sports. It's
yeah.
ballooned
It
so
got so much
much.
it got so much bigger. Yeah, it got so much bigger during their years. It definitely um, I think it became. But that see there again, that is a good chunk of what they did bring to the game because it was because of the popularity of those two players. And, naturally there were other ones that started making, but that was a great period of time. I mean, you had Akeem Olajuwon, there were so many good players. The Lakers, their front court was amazing. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, there's no discounting the contribution that guy made. He worked perfectly with Magic. And so, I mean, it was an incredible James Worthy, all those guys. They were
Yeah,
the
it
late.
was a great time to be into the NBA.
It really was. It truly was. And when they met up for a game, even if the only thing you got out of the two of them was a quick handshake before the game, you knew you were going to have you know, a wild, crazy game with the fans and the Boston fans when they were in Boston. They were vicious. I mean, it was a real. There was one of the times where Bird was recounting some of the stuff that happened. He said they were in one of the playoffs with the finals with the Lakers, and he said that the crowd was so unbelievably loud in the Garden. The Celtics were looking at each other, and they said it sounds like they're right here inside the dressing room with us. And Bird looked at the other Celtics and he said, "Yeah," he goes, "They're out for blood." And he goes, "And I'm going to tell you right now," he goes, "They don't care whose it is." So which was true. It was like we better produce something because if we lose tonight, God knows what's going to happen. Uh, but
It's funny, like everyone at this point, I'm going to say anyone over 30 holds this nostalgic image, like, oh, music just isn't as good these days, or they don't make
yeah,
movies like that anymore.
yeah,
But I truly feel that was a unique era in
yeah.
NBA history that we'll never see the likes of which again.
No, and the game isn't even the same. I mean, the rules have changed so much. One of the things that really kind of cracked me up recently, I was watching. I think it's that in. I think it's called Inside the NBA, the one that both Shaq and
Yeah,
Barkley. They
you're
are
talking to the
so
wrong person. I don't
well.
watch any of those shows.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can catch some of the clips. It's funny. Some of the clips that are on YouTube, I urge people to check out because Shaq and Barkley basically sit there trying to make each other laugh. And there was, and I won't even say the player's name, but there was a player recently took a took a shot to the face. I'm sure he was legitimately, I'm sure he was legitimately concussed, but it was the kind of thing that during the years of Bird, Magic, Barkley, Shaq. Um, those guys played hurt all the time, which isn't always the best thing, but they did. They played hurt. They just
Uh-huh.
wanted their. Oh yeah, my God, yeah, McHale. But
No, it's
they
Larry Bird.
what? Oh, is that Bird? Oh, geez, I thought that was McHale.
That's
Yeah,
Bird on his back.
yeah, he was always on his back in his later years. He was trying to rest it, but yeah. So the guy ends up leaving the game and they announced he left the game in a wheelchair. And Shaq is on one end of the table and he just like crumbles up a piece of paper and Barkley starts laughing. And the other two guys are going, "What are you laughing about?" And they go, "We know, but what are you laughing about?" And they're like, "No, no, we're not even going to go there," because they looked at that like it was complete pansy move to go off the court in a wheelchair for just racking your head. And again, like I said, they played the game different back then, and it was. But that's one of the things that I think fans truly loved when you saw these guys going out there. You really felt like they were giving their body and soul to the game,
They gave
and
their all.
so that's one of the reasons why these two guys um, people just love seeing the old footage. People that to this day, you go on YouTube and there's tons of views on Bird Magic.
And that's exactly the reason I wish this documentary had more footage of that.
Well, I'm more to tell you the truth. I saw those plays, and I can see the highlight plays when I want to. What I'm more happy about is hearing the friendship that evolved over the years.
They had interview time with Brian Gumble. Brian
Yeah,
Gumble, I would have rather seen court footage of these two
yeah.
than hear from
Well,
Brian
again,
Gumble.
like I said, I was more happy to hear Magic talking about how when he found out he had AIDS, and AIDS back then was a death sentence, and it was so
Yep.
much worse. And there were so many fears. A lot of the NBA players did not want to play against Magic Johnson. There was
This
worries
is
that these
true.
people get scratched all the time. The game was so physical, and um, Bird called him right away. And Magic was talking, and he was saying, and his eyes were really watering up. He said, you know, you find out who your friends are when something like this happens. And he said when he said he'd call me to find out just how I was doing, and Bird's response when he found out, because when he found out Magic Johnson ultimately retired, he knew the guys didn't want to play against him. It was a rough time, and when he retired, when Bird found out he retired, Bird was like, I immediately like, all of a sudden that game didn't mean anything to me. He goes, it was all, it was the drive of the game was over because of how much those two, they wanted to compete with each other. They started their career together. They didn't want to continue without each other being on that court. So yeah, it was. I don't know. Like I said, I just felt like that was the beauty of the documentary. There's the when the, there's the commercial, by the way.
Yep.
So um, it was such a long time ago. You don't even think about it. But I mean, just look at the limousine that's there. It's a it's a real old 80s limousine.
Well, I mean,
But no,
look at the uniforms.
oh
I
my
mean, they're
God.
completely different these days.
They are, and not only that, but the uniforms, they were still like, especially the Celtics. I think the Lakers probably got the synthetic ones before but the Celtics were still playing in cotton. And you just imagine those old heavy
I
cotton
cannot
uniforms.
imagine playing in cotton.
Dude, you're soaked with sweat, and those things, those things gotta be. I mean, what do you think those things weigh when your body absorb, it's
Yeah, probably
absorbed
about
every.
5 pounds.
Good God. Yeah. And you're running around playing like that. It's a wonder their shorts didn't fall off. They were, yeah. I mean, how do you even keep them up with wearing old uniforms like that? And again, I think the Celtics were one of the last teams to go to the synthetics. Thank God they finally did. But yeah, the old uniforms look almost silly. The shorts are way shorter. Um, but I'll tell you what, they played some good round ball. They really did. So, and here's another thing. Talking about Pat and players, coaches having respect for Bird, but you got Pat Riley right behind your head there,
Mhm.
coach of the Lakers, and and Riley one time is famous for saying, he goes, if I this and I believe he said this back when Michael Jordan was still in his absolute prime. He said, if I want to win a game, he goes, I want Jordan to take the shot. And he goes, if I want to save my life, he goes, I want Bird. And that says something for you, because it says something about both players were unbelievably amazing, and Magic is right up there with the three of them. They're all three of them. Magic brought something on another level to his game, but it shows the way they had the desire to win and what they would do to win a game. or whatever they needed to win. If they're in competition, they're gonna. But yeah, like I said, there's so many things like that where players and coaches have made statements about both of these guys. It's unbelievable, and so this documentary to me was just it was a chance to really hear the inside stuff, And I mean, uh, yeah, I uh, I love watching it. I could have watched 2 more hours of it. That's how much
It
I
is,
loved it.
it's relatively short. It clocks in at 85 minutes.
Yeah, yep, it is. It's and it's more about it really does help probably to watch this documentary. It helps to have some background
It helps a lot to have some background.
yeah, it really does. But if you're at all familiar with what was going on at the time, it's a good fun watch. And
If you're into sports documentaries, because that's kind of a niche, but if you are into sports documentaries, this is a well done. I've got my issues with it, but this is a well done documentary.
oh, I think it's an amazingly done documentary. I love getting the chance to see it and experience. You know, I think people are hungry for they're hungry for seeing the old footage because they do appreciate that old NBA too, and I think fans long for it. The game is so much different um, than it is, or than it was back then. And I still think, I still think the NBA is incredible to watch. It's still fun, and Bird's one of the big ones that has come out and said because people will compare him or Magic or Jordan or somebody to a current player, and he's like, just those guys were great back then, and these guys are great too, and there's a lot of entertainment here, and he said just let these guys be great, and it's true. It's you're you can't just sit back and say, oh no, those this guy was the best or that guy. It's I mean,
They all had their own. It's like these two were like samurai.
yeah,
They were at this elite level. They had this immense respect for each other, but one learned Southern water style, and the other learned,
right,
flying crane.
yeah,
And it's not
yeah,
that any one is better than the other.
right,
It's just that in their own way, they are the masters of what they do.
exactly, and what they have each done uh, on the court, people are always going to remember it, and depending on which side of the country you were on, maybe, and were a fan of one team or the other, or East Coast, West Coast, um, you might have a love hate feeling for. But there enough time has passed. I remember just like man, I hated the Lakers and I hated seeing them win. But I really appreciate what that team or those teams were that took those championships. And when they did take them from the Celtics, you have to give them credit for they deserved it
Oh,
when
they
when
worked.
when they
They
won.
fought for every inch.
Yeah, I mean, neither of those teams gave it up. And yeah, the bad boys of Detroit, and yet that were emerging, and you know you had Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, and
Yeah, Philly was not to be scoffed at.
no, no, there were so many talented players of that era that to take away from any player, and then again looking at the current players today, yeah, I think the game is softer. It's there's less
It's
contact.
it's hard to say. I
That
mean, we're looking from the outside.
well,
I always
yeah,
hesitate to make claims like that when I don't really know what it's like in there.
yeah. I mean, the believe me, contact back then, when, and I'm not saying it's necessarily for the better, but it was so much more of a physical contact game back then, which is probably why some of these guys got so badly hurt. But do you know that one of the things that contributed to Larry Bird's back injury was one summer he decided to lay gravel
Huh.
to build a driveway at his home in French Lick. And he spread gravel all summer long, and he hurt his back. And McHale's famous for saying, "Hell, if I'd known you need help with your driveway, I would have come out there." But he had so much money, he didn't need to do that.
Mm.
But it was that working class thing. It was like, no, I'm gonna spread the gravel myself. And it's like, he probably, it was a small town. Everybody knew him. He was probably thinking to himself, if I hire these guys, they're gonna think to themselves, wow, look at this guy, he's gone soft. In the old days, he would have done this himself, So, I mean,
That
again,
being said,
yeah,
I do give this documentary 2 thumbs up, and it's the perfect accompaniment if you're going to be following the Celtics right now.
yes, absolutely. And so if we have done nothing else, I hope we've helped to spur fans into watching the game and enjoying it. And yes, I give this 2 thumbs up and a slam dunk. so,
Now you're throwing the system off.
we can only do that for basketball documentaries. But I guess if we were doing a baseball one, then you'd say, it's a grand slam. But no, like I said, I definitely thoroughly enjoyed it. I hesitated you actually gave me the courage to pick this one because
Well, I mean, like, if there's ever an interest in NBA, it's right now. Like, I haven't been following the NBA, but when the playoffs come around,
yeah.
my interest comes back.
Oh, of course. And that one of the great things with sports, and when you get into whether it's baseball with the World Series or whatever it is, Stanley Cup playoffs, it helps to when your team is you know is making those finals. It brings out even people who maybe sometimes put that loyalty to the side. So yeah, but whatever
Yeah,
team you happen
timely
to,
pick.
yeah. So it was, and like I said, I'm glad. Well, it might not have happened because I'm always torn on my picks anyway, and sometimes I need you to just say, just pick this one.
Mhm.
But which you did with this one because I would have maybe hesitated or not done it.
No, no,
But
perfect timing, perfect choice.
yeah, I believe it was, and like I said, I was happy to see it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, these two, these two are unbelievable. Uh, they're my heroes of the basketball world. They really are, and there's so many players that I've loved over the years and rooted for and enjoyed watching. I mean, I don't care whether it was Dr. J or whoever. There was, they don't have to be a Celtic player for me to really appreciate their skills. And there were so many people that I've have been blessed to see over the years. And you know, like I said, I think we were truly blessed to see these two guys. But so yeah,
Agreed.
I definitely feel like this was probably a good watch for us. Um, and hopefully, if you guys have not seen this documentary, it's
You can find this right on YouTube. It's so easy to
yeah,
find.
it's available on YouTube. It's also available on Max. Um, Surprisingly, I actually had thought I had maybe bought it on Vudu, but like usual, a lot of times I think I own something that I haven't yet purchased. It's it's up there on Vudu, but they don't have the rights to it. It says it's not yet available for home purchase. So, but you can watch it like Dom just said, just watch it on YouTube. Check it out. It's a really good watch. And also, I would say, Dom, if you can add that link to,
Yeah,
um,
believe me, I've got some links.
good,
There was
good.
no shortage of links for this.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if you would do your magic, speaking of Magic Johnson, and yep, all I can say is Magic Bird, thank you for all the enjoyment that you brought to my
Agreed.
sports watching, because you made the game of basketball fun, and I really appreciate the chance to see these two on the court. So unbelievable. And again, till the day they die, those two they're linked forever. So luckily, but
But I'll be watching the new Celtics tonight.
yeah, yeah. And again, I do have to say, um, just like Bird and Magic have both said, appreciate the players and the game that you have when you have it, because whatever era that you happen to live in, you're seeing some greats, and appreciate those players. Uh, these two were phenomenal, and there's a lot of guys out there that are phenomenal. So appreciate the teams and the players that you do have. If I have anything to take away from it, please, everybody, if you would leave a like, subscribe, forward this to so other people can see it. And I think, having said that, Dom, do you have your next week
I
is
do.
Dom's pick?
I do. We've been talking about this movie since we started this channel. So I'm like, I'm finally going to pick it. We're doing The Thing.
Oh, okay. All right. See, the thing is probably it's probably one of my favorite movies of all time.
Same here.
And it's easily in my, dare I say, top five.
But let's save the comments until our next video.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, I'm glad you picked it, because I would have
I just
probably,
can't wait to see it again.
yeah, yeah. And I would have picked it, even next month, because I've been
I knew it was
looking,
going to be one of us. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
let's just do it.
Well, that's one of the ones that, like, I've got I'll talk about it next week when we do it, but that is a movie that I try to watch at least once a year. So that's
And
how
if
much
you're
I love
still
it.
with us out there, the thing is on Tubi. You've got no excuse. You can
Yeah.
see it for free. Go watch it. It's a great movie, and Mike and I are going to talk your ear off about it
Oh,
next week.
absolutely. There's so many great things about that film. The great Kurt Russell. But
You're
the
starting to
Wilford
talk about
Brimley.
Mike. We got to
Yeah.
save this.
Yes. So it's yeah, we'll get together again next week. I think, having said all of that, Dom, I think we probably set our fill
I
there.
agree.
So
I
if
agree.
yeah, if everybody would just please leave that like and subscribe, and join us again next week for The Thing.
See y'all then.
Take care.